Hi, and welcome to Farming Simulator 25 with Idgits Gaming. We have a new challenge today for you, brought to you by the YouTuber Syrup, where we start with 100K in debt, even though noticing at the footage, I did start with $1 million in debt. Here is our base mods that we're going to start with. Nothing all too game breaking, but a little bit of quality of life improvement. A pretty generic character that I've been using for a little while now, but we'll go into our settings. Turn time down to real time just for the time being. Turn off uh, or turn periodic plowing on. Turn off auto start, stop and go braking, all of the AI buy stuff because we're not going to have the money to allow AI to be buying anything. We'll probably not be using AI very much anyways. Just going into the rest of our settings real quick just to make sure everything's set correctly before we get started. But the challenge is pretty simple. We start with 100K in debt. We're not allowed to take out any loans. We're not allowed to do any leasing. We can do contracts, but we have to own the equipment to do a contract. And so no borrowing any equipment, which in 22 was a little bit better than it is in 25 because the borrowing equipment was based on the value of the equipment. Now it's just a flat fee. If you borrow one piece of equipment, it's $200. Borrow two, it's $400. But we'll go ahead and grab a tractor real quick. Obviously, we don't have much money, so we're going to start with this little John Deere here. And I always use the quickie or quick, or I don't know how it's supposed to be said, front loader, but I think we'll switch it up and use the Hauer. Again, I don't know how it's supposed to be said. I'm just guessing. If I'm saying it wrong, feel free to correct me. But we'll grab that front loader, and I noticed that we can't just do the combination tab anymore, at least from the tractor. But here's our front loader, basically the cheapest one we can get because, again, we don't have any money. And no front loader is complete without a front loader tool. And the only one to really start with is a pallet fork. We can do a lot with a pallet fork, but we're mainly going to be using it to tote around fertilizer because there's always fertilizer contracts. And with that being said, let's go ahead and scroll down a little bit. I'm still trying to get used to the new layout of 25. But we need a fertilizer spreader. And as much as I would really, really like to start with that second one there, we need to be cheap. So we're gonna get the cheap one. I'd much rather have the $25,000 one. We'll grab some fertilizer because what's the point of doing a fertilizer contract if you don't have any fertilizer? I know there are mods out there that allow the contract to come with fertilizer, but we're not using them. Grab a weeder because in August when we start, there's quite a few weeding contracts, and this will come in handy later. We'll go ahead and take this time to get the tractor set up. And first things first is get the front loader and pallet fork onto the tractor because, again, what's the point of buying a front loader if we're not going to actually use it? This is probably going to be used mainly to haul around fertilizer, though down the road. I'm sure the front loader is going to come in pretty handy. Might have to get a log fork and be able to do wood transport and possibly move some dead wood around just to feed a sawmill if we go down that route. Haven't really figured out what all we're going to do. I know a lot of people currently are using the deadwood contracts to fill their sawmills as a great source of basically free wood and easy money. Obviously, there's no contracts just yet, so we're going to speed up time till about 9 a.m. By then, we might have some. I really wish, looking back, I would have used this time to fill the fertilizer spreader or drop the fertilizer and get the spreader and get it filled, but there's a reason why the channel is called Idgits Gaming. You're going to notice a lot of mistakes that I make, and looking back at them at the editing process really hammers through that hindsight's 2020. I do realize that can't do deadwood or anything like that if I don't have a chainsaw. So we're going to go with this McCulloch here. I normally use this still just because it's a more known brand for me, but I wanted to try something new. Now that I finally realized that I can't really fill the fertilizer spreader with the fertilizer on the front of the tractor. Let's go ahead and grab the fertilizer spreader, set the fertilizer down, and get this filled up so we can go try to hit some of these contracts that or at least this one fertilizer contract that I've picked up at the moment, as I can't take the fertilizer spreader and the weeder at the same time unless I want to put the fertilizer on the forks, lift it up, put the spreader under, which, I could do, but I'm just not going to for right now. We're going to go ahead and leave here, and we'll time lapse the drive over just because we're going to do a lot of driving, and we need music. Not a very far drive, but here we are at the first field, and we'll go ahead and go over some of the new features in 25, such as the GPS. This I'm torn on whether I like this or don't like it. I was a big user of guidance steering back in 22, and I like it being implemented into 25, or at least a system similar. But at the same time, I would kind of like to just have precision steering back, but that might just be my bias of going back to what I've used for years and not liking something new. My major problem is the fact that you can't use GPS outside of a predefined field. So if you want to cut a nice straight field, you're left with just the compass numbers down in the minimap, which I play with my minimap almost always. I get lost on maps easily. It's easier for me to have the minimap up. If you guys would rather me learn to play without it, feel free to say something. It gives a little bit more screen real estate, but I think that's kind of the only benefit to not having it there. If you're new to the map or unfamiliar with the map, it does kind of help you guys know which field I'm on, and doing. When I do fertilizer contracts like this, I don't generally use my headlands just because I've got enough room in the head and tail of the field to just drive right on through. It just works better for me and my playstyle. Your playstyle can be your playstyle. But we'll go ahead and get this fertilizer contract done. It won't take very long. We're not going to time lapse the first one just to kind of show how long it really takes. Most of the rest of the contracts will be time lapsed, but at least these first couple ones will go ahead and play in real time. If you're new to the game, you can get these lines set up by holding down H, which allows you to go into that little menu that popped up. You can select AI helper or guide steering assist. Got to remember, it's not called guidance steering, it's steering assist. And once you select which one you want, if you're doing the steering assist, just pull up to the line. It'll light up, and you just press H, you lock on, and away you go. But this field's almost done. I love these little contracts like this. They take next to no time, and if I had the other fertilizer spreader, they take even less time, but got to make money where we can. And for right now, we're going to go ahead and collect the contracts from the menu. I am thinking at this moment to change that. My thought is that I'm new in town. Most of these farmers aren't going to have a way of getting a hold of me. They don't know my phone number. So I think here real soon we're going to switch over to having the shop do all of the contract. They have the money, they have the contracts, they've got a bulletin board up or whatnot. They know the farmers and the farmers know them, so they tell the shop that, hey, we need somebody to come fertilize this field. I don't have time, or I don't have the equipment, or yada, yada, yada. But we go ahead and get our fertilizer spreaders filled back up, and we'll go ahead and start driving to the next field. Again, we'll just time lapse it, but we'll see you there. Well, this is my first YouTube video that I've done any kind of narration, so if there's anything that you don't like, you'd like to see me improve on, or tips or tricks, or just something that doesn't seem like I know, feel free to drop a comment below. I welcome all feedback. But we'll go ahead and knock out this little fertilizer field real quick. I'm probably going to use a fair amount of time lapses in this video. There's a couple jump cuts just because either the camera's moving around way too much in a time lapse and it kind of felt disorienting, or one of my pre-viewers thought it was a little nausea-inducing. So I try to keep my camera very still when I'm doing fields, because I realize that they're probably going to be time-lapsed in the future when I go through the editing process. And just not a huge fan of watching the camera flick all over the place and kind of disorienting a little bit, like I said before. So for the time lapses, I'll try to keep my camera very, very still, just so that it's a slightly more enjoyable viewing experience for you guys, because I need to make this enjoyable for you. I realize that I'm a little rambly at times. I say way too much, but it kind of gives the video a little bit of character, I think. But that'll be up to you guys in the comments, and the channel will grow and learn and hopefully get better with time with your input. And I am going to try to be very community based and let you guys make a lot of decisions. Once we get caught up to what I've already pre-recorded, I do have the first 3 episodes recorded for this. I just need to find time to get them cut and go through all this fun editing stuff, which I'm still very much learning. This is a very, very new thing for me, but I look at it as I'm playing the game anyways. I enjoy the game. I have been told by a few people that they'd like to hear my voice over the videos. I've done some straight time-lapse videos for 22, but I don't really want to do straight time-lapse videos. I want to connect to my community, and I don't think you can really do that if you just do a time-lapse video. I can't talk half the time. I do have a slight speech impediment. You'll probably hear from time to time. If you haven't figured it out yet, I am American, so I know some of this farming stuff because my family were farmers. As far back as my grandfather, my mom and dad weren't really much involved in the farming growing up, but they did a little bit here and there. But this field's almost done, so I'm going to stop rambling for a little while. We'll go ahead and finish this out, drive back and get our fertilizer, and probably start figuring out what we're going to do next. Going forwards in the video, I will be using quite a bit of time lapses. If you think they're too slow or too fast, feel free to drop a comment. Like I have said, I want this to be a community-based project and just me playing and doing the editing stuff in the background. If you have a way that I can do it better, tell me. If you think that the way I'm doing it is better than the way you're doing it, everybody likes a little positive feedback. But we've got our spreader filled back up, and let's go ahead and go back to the shop because we need to get this weeding contract done, and can only really do that if we go get a weeder. We'll go ahead and time lapse this without music just because this isn't really long enough to have music, and I feel like a 10-15 second drive it'd be a little weird to just have a little blip of music, but I'll still speed them up from time to time just because if you want to watch me drive around aimlessly, I live stream these as well. So if you want to watch uninterrupted, unsped up gameplay, there's an option for that. I try to be relatively entertaining on my live streams, but if there's nobody in chat, I'm just talking to myself, and I always feel weird. I kind of feel weird recording this as is, but I'm trying, and that's kind of what matters, right? We only get better at something if we try. But go ahead and check the rest of the contracts. Looks like I have a, oh, good God, that's a massive weeding contract. That's going to take forever. But $15,000 contract's really hard to pass up. So let's grab it. We'll see how I can do that creatively in the editing process, because that's going to take like an hour of straight gameplay, even with GPS. Looking up, this weeding contract's pretty close to the previous one. I know we kind of know where we're going. And here again, here's the steering assist menu, so it's a little bit more shown. For weeding, I really prefer to do 2 headlands, just because of the width of the equipment. Fertilizer, I've got 14 meters. I don't really need 2 headlands, but now we're going to speed this up because this takes forever. I mean, I think this field itself's probably about 5 minutes. So I am going to time lapse the weeding a little bit faster just because, oh, it takes so much longer. And how long do you really want to watch me drag a weeder around? We'll do this first bit. I already kind of went over how to get the steering assist set up. And weeding is a great source of income at the beginning just because this cheap weeder was $6,500. On the next field, yes, I should be using a much, much larger weeder to do, but it can be done with this cheap one, and it pays for the weeder, and then, quite a bit more. Though on average, I think we only really get weeding contracts up until September, and then they kind of start disappearing just because the fields are ready to harvest. You don't generally run a weeder through a field that's ready to harvest. But we've got the first row done, so let's go ahead and speed this up. And that wraps up that field. Did take a little while, but through the magic of video editing and time lapsing, didn't seem like all that long for you guys. And I'm going to try to mix the music up a little bit. For some reason, when I'm playing Farm Sim, I tend to go towards country music. I don't know why, but I know not everybody listens to country, so we're going to do a little variety stream. Feel like a disc jockey going through and trying to get the right music for each area and try to not have it to be too boring or too slow. And my time lapses I always try to do as very relaxing because I know a lot of people put on hour-long videos to fall asleep to, which, is great. If you can find a good video that you can just pop on and fall asleep to, yeah, it doesn't really make the YouTube overlords very happy because, ad revenue is not really going to work on a sleeping person. But if you find a creator whose voice you like or whose music selections you like, you know, it's more about you than it is the overlords who give us money, which I don't make any money on these anyways, so it'd be nice too, but I'm not holding my breath to getting paid to make content. I do this because honestly, I like playing the game, and if people enjoy watching me play it, cool, it's a win-win for both of us. And I know I've learned a lot of stuff from this game just based on watching YouTube videos. And it looks like we're going to get over here to the next track, and this is the monster field. I believe this is the biggest field on this map, and this is going to take a very long time, so I think we're going to speed things up, and we're going to cut a good chunk out. But we'll see you on the other side. Okay, that did take every bit as long as I thought it would. Grand total of footage was about an hour and 5 minutes, and even time lapsing, I don't think anybody really wants to sit through and watch all of that. So we'll just jump cut through half of it, and had this idea that maybe for the role play we could actually get into the store and there's a person in there, but it doesn't seem like that was implemented into this map. I know some maps you can actually go into the shop and there's a cashier or a clerk or whatnot there at the counter, but not in this. But we'll grab a couple more contracts and get back to work because, we're going to be doing a lot of work to try to make any money on this and actually get ahead in life. 100K in debt's not going to pay itself, and we need to get land, which I think I'm going to go ahead and use the same starting land that Syrup used, which is field 29. It's a grass field, so we start with a crop that's already planted that doesn't take very much money to harvest. And then we got another weeding contract, and this is another decent sized field, but we'll just time lapse this one. I don't think we need to jump cut through it. And away we go. Okay, that contract's done. We'll go ahead and come back here to the shop. I did decide to go ahead and use the shop as the point of contact for all contracts. So we have to come back here to collect money from all contracts. We have to come back here to accept any new contracts. And it's always nice to come in here and check out the used equipment sale. It'd be really nice to grab that cultivator or that tedder, but I don't really plan on making hay, so we'll probably skip that. I don't think there's hay tedding contracts, and I don't have anywhere near the power to actually pull that cultivator. I don't really need a grape wagon that can only haul grape, so we're definitely going to skip on that. I'd love to get the combine or the tractor, but bank account's looking a little on the light side. We'll get a little bit of boost there from accepting this contract, but we're still not going to be affording a $90,000 tractor anytime soon, and surely not affording a $190,000 combine. There's a weeding contract, but we got 3 fertilizing contracts, and I like getting 3 of the same kind just because we can only have 3, and we can grab 3 of the same kind. We can just get our stuff, go get them knocked out, come back, collect our money, and that's all she said. And, this will be a nice little boost for our pocketbook. We do have a field that I think $61,000 to buy. The shop will be our point of contact for buying land as well, just because, again, no one knows who we are. You can't just show up at a farmer's field and say, hey, I want to buy your field. Most of the time, a farmer's not at their field. But we'll get to these contracts. Yeah, that was a short drive, but a little bit of music's always nice. This gives us a chance to kind of go over just the fact that we're going to get these 3 fields knocked out pretty quick. None of them are all that big, and with the 14-meter spread of the fertilizer spreader, it doesn't really take very long. And I'll probably go ahead and time-lapse these just because how many times do you really want to watch me fertilize a field in real time? It's just a little bit better to be able to use time lapses. I may start montaging these down the road, but not this episode. Okay, that field's done. We're not going to collect the money through the menu, even though I did pop it up there for a second. I'm just trying to get used to the rules that I have set myself. And like any other new rule that you start telling yourself, you tend to bounce back on it from time to time and tell yourself, no, we're not going to do that. That's outside the scope of what we're going to do. But that field's done. I did go ahead and do headlands on it just because if you notice, there's not a lot of space between this field and the field surrounding it or this ditch here. And I don't know if you've ever driven into a ditch before. It's normally not the most fun thing in the world. I mean, a tractor like this can probably go through it, but we're not going to drive through ditches if we can help it. we'll go ahead and stop here at the store real quick, just since it's on the way and our fertilizer pallet's starting to get a little light. I know in game they're called pallets, but I don't think that's what we call them here in the Midwest. I'll have to ask some of my cousins and whatnot and see what they call them, if they even use this style of pallet. We'll collect our money for the contract since we're here, and there's a deadwood and a weeding contract, but deadwood's on the other side of the map from where we're going to, and weeding involves grabbing the other implement. So I think we'll just go ahead and knock out these two contracts real quick. I have to mentally remind myself to pick up that far pallet and not this closest one. You'll probably hear me call these things totes from time to time. It's what jumps into my mind when I see them. And I don't know, it's just kind of hard to mentally remind myself that in the game they're called pallets. But if I can actually get my forks up off the ground, we'll go ahead and drive to the next field and get these two fields knocked out real quick. It's not a very far drive, but we'll go ahead and time lapse it. And while we're making the drive, I will go ahead and throw out a shameless plug that if you're enjoying the content, feel free to drop me a subscribe or a like or a comment. Okay, a couple more fields knocked out and more money in our pocket once we get back to the shop to actually collect it. And did notice that pallet really did not want to come off my forks. I seem to be struggling a little bit with the front end loader. I am playing with a keyboard and mouse, so I don't get all the luxuries of having the joystick or any of the fancy stuff like a steering wheel or pedals, but maybe down the road. I'm just currently playing around with a wireless keyboard and mouse just because it's what I had. If the channel starts actually picking up any traction and people are enjoying the content, I'll invest a little more money in my setup and try to make this a little bit more enjoyable to watch and maybe a little more enjoyable for me to actually play, even though I do really enjoy it with a keyboard and mouse. And I can imagine having some of the fancier stuff would make it just that much better. I do need to try to make a mental note of where all the sell points are on this map, just because I never played Sri Lanka on 22. I know it was released with the premium edition, I think. I know it wasn't with the platinum. I had the platinum edition. I think the next one was called premium, but I didn't buy it, so I don't know. And I think it's Sri Lanka. It might be Sri Lanka. Again, I don't know how to say it. I think it's Polish. I don't speak Polish, so if it's not Sri Lanka, please let me know, and I'll try to mentally correct myself, even though it doesn't always work. I'm going to try to refill this spreader from this light one, but it looks like it grabbed it off out of my forks. Go ahead and collect these two contracts real quick. The cashier was nice enough to come out to my tractor, save me a couple steps. I'll go ahead and grab this weeding contract real quick. And I'd like to do that rock contract, but I don't have the equipment, so we'll grab these two real quick and we'll get back to work, as we're going to be doing a lot of these contracts for the next quite a while, trying to figure out how I want to tackle this. And I think this is about when I realized that I literally just filled up my spreader from the fertilizer on my forks, which seems like quite a large area of reach for the spreader to actually pick up from. But had I known that beforehand, I might just carry this fertilizer on my forks and never set it down. But at 25, we've got to worry about soil compaction, even though I don't think there's any major negative from soil compaction. There might be, I don't know. I haven't really done much testing. I don't have nearly as much time to play as I would like to, but we'll go ahead and get to this little weeding contract real quick. It's right over here next to the field that I want to purchase. 29, I think, is the next field down this lane. But we'll get this field knocked out real quick, and I think we'll go get that deadwood. Oh, that one definitely didn't take very long. I will try to do a lot of these fields without the GPS lines turned on, just because when you're doing a time lapse, I think that they're a little distracting. But that would be kind of up to you guys. I don't always need them. Sometimes with weeding, especially if it's a freshly sowed field, it's really hard to tell where you've been versus not been. So with those, I might leave the lines on, but a lot of times I can just pop them on just to make sure that I'm kind of sort of lined up with where I need to be. There is a white line versus gray line thing that I'm trying to figure out. I think the gray line is a line that you've already driven down. I don't think it's a line you've worked, though. I do know in 54 I had to go back through because I missed 3 lines, which was really painful to hear when I thought I'd done the entire field and spent nearly an hour doing it, and just to come to find out that no, there was still more to do, and I had to rely on the actual map to figure out where I hadn't been. When I was playing 22, I did have the Platinum Edition, as I said a little bit ago, and I've really enjoyed the precision farming mod that came out with it. I enjoyed a lot of the different mini maps that precision farming would allow to kick over, and I kind of hope that Giants decides to put some of that stuff into 25 as base game, and possibly even just bring back precision farming. But we're going to go ahead and knock out this deadwood contract real quick. Looking back at this footage in the editing room, I did notice there's a lot of camera movement during this deadwood, so we'll just go ahead and drop a cut right here, just because it was painful to watch. Even in the time lapse, it was just a lot of camera bouncing all over the place as I'm sitting there trying to look for where the trees are. And if you've not done the deadwood contract before, a lot of it is just looking for which tree you're supposed to cut, and they're pretty obvious. It's a very noticeably dead tree. There's red spray paint marked on it, and you just go up and cut them down. And once you've got the number of trees that they want you to cut down, you collect a contract. But we'll go ahead and move on to the next job, and we'll time lapse the drive. And unfortunately, the next contract is the fertilizing contract, so we get to switch out the weeding equipment for the fertilizing contract. But while we're here, we'll go ahead and collect these two contracts and put a little more money in our pocket. I am purposely leaving a lot of my vocal flubs and whatnot in the recording just because this is how I talk. And if you ever decide to watch a live stream, this is what you're going to get. So I'm trying to be as authentic as I can be in this recording as I will be in my live streams. I do stumble on words from time to time. It looks like we have enough money to buy this field, so let's go ahead and finally become landowners. Not really going to be able to do anything with the field because, well, we've got $3,000 left. This is not going to go very far. As landowners, we need to buy a mower, and after that, we need to come up with some way in order to actually get the grass picked up, and we need to decide if we're going to try to turn it into silage or even get a small tedder and turn it into hay for a little bit of increased money, or if we're just going to sell it as grass, and which is probably the cheapest thing you can sell it for, but money's money. So let's go ahead and get to this next contract. Was really glad here to realize that this fertilizer spreader has an adjustable width. But at the same time, I really need to be paying attention to which field I'm actually supposed to go to because this isn't the right field. I had to stop here at the very beginning of this field I just did just to admire the new potato texture or model or whatever it's supposed to be called. Though from my experience, and this is just for small field, potatoes normally have a purple flower. I'm not used to white flowers. Let me know if that's different in commercial potatoes. And this highlights the drawback to having an adjustable width. Implement GPS defaults to the full width and not the partial width. In this case, the 14 meters, not the 10 meters. So as you see here in this mini map here in just a second, there's a fair amount I missed, and GPS isn't going to be much help. Though I think I'm just going to drive up and down the blue lines in between the rows I already did. So let's get it done. Well, that was a little bit painful just because I had to use a bunch of extra fertilizer because I made a mistake. But again, channel name, Idiots Gaming. I'm going to be an idiot from time to time because, well, everybody makes mistakes, and I'm not going to cut them out because I know when you're playing, if you play, you'll probably make mistakes too, and it's a little bit more confidence inspiring to see other people make mistakes. But let's get back to the shop. I did purposely leave my fertilizer spreader a little low on fertilizer just so I could finally kill this partial pallet here. But let's go ahead and collect our money from these contracts and see what else is in store for us. We still have a little bit left to play, and might as well make as much money as we can. That's actually a pretty decent deadwood contract. Not 100% sure where that is on the map. I've not really been there, but $1,200, let's grab it. And we'll go ahead and figure it out where we're going. I don't really need the fertilizer or the spreader, so we'll just go ahead and leave this stuff here at the shop, and we'll get over to where this deadwood is, and hopefully I do a little bit better job recording this time so I can time lapse it for you. Didn't really see a path coming off the road back there, but driving through this field it worked. I'm sure somebody would probably be a little complainy if they actually saw me do it in real life, but it's a video game, so it is what it is. Let's go ahead and get this tree cut down and get started on this deadwood contract. And I'm going to try to do this one through a time lapse. Hopefully the camera's a little bit more steady for you. If you don't like seeing the deadwoods time lapse like this, I can do jump cuts between the trees or just cut it out completely like I did the previous one. Just let me know down below. Comment section is always open, and like I said earlier, I appreciate any kind of feedback because this is a very new thing for me and it's a learning experience, and I want the community to be involved in building this up. But that contract's done, so let's go ahead and time lapse back to the shop and we'll see where we stand. All right, and yet again, we're back here at the shop. I'm sure they're getting a little tired of seeing me, but it is what it is, and we go ahead and collect our money here, and I think we've got time to do one more contract, but see if there's anything actually worth doing. Looks like there's a couple small fertilizing contracts that we can knock out pretty quick, so we'll go ahead and grab these, and we'll just go ahead and time lapse this entire thing because, meh, why not? And as you see again, I fell into the trap of the adjustable width of the fertilizer spreader again. And even though I said I probably wouldn't, I decided to drive through a ditch. But that should be the last contract for this month. It's starting to get a little dim, and I'm not going to try to do much recording when it gets too dark just because it's difficult enough for me to see. I can imagine what it's going to be like through on the video itself. So we'll try to only work during the day itself. But we'll go ahead and get back to the shop and we'll collect these contracts and we'll do a little wrap up for the end of the episode and we'll see how that's going. I'm not going to bother time lapsing this drive just because it's not very far to the shop. I get down here to this road, hang a right, and the shop's right there in front of us. Uh, Grandpa Walters will be on our right as we're driving to the shop, and so I'm sure by now he's got some food cooked for us and a nice hot bed. God knows, after working this many hours, definitely want to fall down and have a nice long sleep. If you've never actually been in a tractor before, working for this many hours takes its toll on your body. You're bouncing all over the place. The seat's comfortable, but it's definitely not a luxury car. We'll go ahead and drop in here to the shop, collect our money, and see what we're ending the day with, or the month. I always default to day. Doesn't really look like there's any contracts really worth doing. I mean, there's another deadwood, but I just did a deadwood. I don't really want to go cut down any more trees. And that's in the exact same spot that we just went. So long drive there, long drive back. So next episode, we do need to pick up a few things. Like we need to get a mower, which I'm debating between those two. Next month, there will be a lot of fields that are harvested that will need to be cultivated. So a cultivator will be a very large source of income. And we'll probably just be going with this little John Deere because, well, money's tight. On top of that, we will need to find something to pick up the grass. Going forwards in future episodes, I will try to do a finance breakdown at the end of each episode, kind of showing how much we've earned, how much we've spent, and everything involved there. We'll do a breakdown of what all equipment we've currently own and go from there. But that kind of ends this episode. Let me know what you think, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.